My girlfriend cheated on me multiple times, so I set up a fake proposal on her birthday, and in front of all her friends, I surprised her with proof of her cheating. Just to give you some context, I turned 18 and moved out to a small blue-collar town. I got a job in the trades and ended up making pretty good money, enough to buy a nice place with a 3-car garage for all my toys. I'm not gonna lie, I treated myself. I worked hard and played hard. I didn't come from much. My family had a tough time, so when I started making money, I helped them out. I paid their bills and got them out of debt. My family and I are tight, but I'm not perfect by any means. There was a time when I hit rock bottom. I got hooked on opiates after an injury at work. I basically messed up my knee and needed surgery. I was out of work for a while. After I got better, I went back to work, but I was pretty medicated. It started with opiates, and then I started mixing in some cocaine. I was in pain, feeling lonely, and just unhappy. I was busting my butt at work. But my family really came through for me and helped me get back on my feet. I was in a really dark place in my life, and they pulled me out of that mess. Not long after getting sober, when I was about 23, I met my future ex. I'll call her Kelsey. When we first met, she was dating someone else. She had a long-term boyfriend who worked in the same town as me. We actually worked at the same camp, but since it's so big, I never actually worked directly with him. Even though we didn't work together, we had mutual friends. One of our mutual friends was throwing a barbecue, and Kelsey just happened to be in town that day and came to the barbecue. I'll be honest, at the barbecue she was flirting with me, and I totally flirted back. She texted me after that. At first it was harmless, maybe with some dirty jokes here and there. I could tell she was trying to get me to bite, but I didn't until the day she told me she broke up with him. When I had my off weekend, I'd drive 3 hours to see her and crash at her place for the weekend to get my nut in. Let me tell you, she did not disappoint. And looking back, she was a bit off her rocker, but it added some excitement, and I was into it. Yeah, whatever. For the most part, our relationship was good over the next 4 years, even though we kept breaking up and getting back together. Whenever I went out of my way to do something special for her, we'd end up in this huge fight, and she'd dump me. But the breakup never lasted long because she'd still come over to hook up and then beg to get back together shortly after. Honestly, this was just how things were, and it felt normal to me. And it honestly felt like a joke. I never took it seriously when she broke up with me because I knew within the week she'd be over at my place trying to seduce me. She was nuts, and it drove me wild in the best ways. After a while, though, and after talking to her recently, she told me that she broke up with me because she felt guilty about cheating on me, just like she had been cheating on her previous boyfriend. She told me she was basically hooked on it. She loved the attention. She loved the chase. And honestly, she became a bit of an addiction for me too. I think a part of me didn't believe that I deserved love, so I got used to being treated like that. At one point, though, I tried to put my foot down and tried to practice some self-control. This lasted for about 4 months. In that time, while we were broken up, I took time off work and went backpacking through France, Italy, Croatia, and eventually to Greece. I met some of the most beautiful women I had ever seen. And for a moment, I had forgotten about Kelsey, and shockingly, I know, but I was actually happy. When I got back, I started planning my next move. I was all set to sell my house and leave that small town behind. I wanted to move to a warmer place and only travel up north for work. But she must have sensed an opportunity because as soon as I started looking around, she called me up and said she wanted to reconcile, sounding really serious about committing. We even talked about getting married, starting a family, and began looking at houses together. SMH. But everything seemed to fall into place, and I actually believed her. This is where things started to go really downhill. My work is pretty unpredictable. We have jobs that can last anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months. It all depends. When I'm not working, I go on unemployment insurance. I did end up selling my place in that blue-collar town in Kelsey, and I bought a place in her city. But this all means that I can be away from home for at least 2 weeks at a time, at most maybe 6 weeks. If anything, I'd try to come home when I could, even if it was just for 3 days. So at one point, I come home after being away for 6 weeks. We had just finished a shutdown, worked about 10 days straight. As soon as I get back, I start getting really sketchy vibes. She starts love bombing me. She does a certain thing to me as soon as I walk in the door, then she barbecues some steak, and then she starts a fire. We sit around the fire and finish up with a night of sex. I had a feeling she was trying to butter me up for something or hide something. She was definitely distracting me from something. We're laying in bed afterwards. It's about 2 a.m. and she's had about 6 beers plus a bottle of wine. She's a lightweight, so by this time she's pretty drunk. She's laying there naked, and then she mentioned that this guy, I'll call him End, keeps talking to her on social media. She said that he randomly reached out to her on Instagram. Right away, I'm seeing a red flag. I try to shake it off and pretend like it didn't bother me. She won't stop talking about this dude and how hilarious he is. I keep trying to switch topics, but she always circles back to this End guy. She's going on about how End is so understanding, how he listens to her problems, how he gets her in a way I never could. It feels like a knife in my heart, hearing her rave about another guy while we're lying naked in my bed. But I'm trying to keep it together, shoving down the jealousy and insecurity that's bubbling up. As she keeps going, she tells me how N just got out of a relationship, how he's been going through a rough patch, feeling lost and alone. And then, out of nowhere, she admits that she's been venting to him about our relationship issues. My mind is spinning at the betrayal, realizing she's been spilling our private stuff to some random dude. But even though I'm fuming and hurting inside, I'm forcing myself to stay calm and listen as she goes on about their talks. Eventually, she passes out and I grab her phone and take it to the bathroom to snoop around. At first, I feel bad about it, but when I see the messages between them, the guilt turns to anger. I wake her up right away, shove the phone in her face, and show her the nudes they've been swapping, not just recently, but before our 4-month break too. We've been living together for almost a year by now. Of course, she starts bawling and sobbing. She's drunk and not making any sense. So I leave and crash at my friend's place for the night. While I'm gone, she's blowing up my phone with calls and texts, but I'm not picking up. The next morning, I head back home and find her passed out in the kitchen, completely unresponsive. Come to find out, she had a full-blown panic attack, so much so that she hyperventilated and ended up passing out, hitting her head on the kitchen counter. She had a mild concussion. I told her I needed to hear the truth, and that's when she admitted to hooking up with End right before we broke up for those 4 months and I left on my trip. She said she thought I was catching onto something back then, so she started a fight and broke up with me before I could break up with her. She said she hooked up with him while I was away and then realized she missed me, and when I got back she wanted to get back together. She said she only started talking to him again while I was away working recently because I was gone and she had needs. She straight up told me that she's too horny for monogamy, but that she loves me and doesn't want to lose me. Then she drops another bomb and tells me that she actually didn't break up with our mutual friend before we started dating. She just wanted to be with me so badly that she told me she had. Honestly, I had a feeling that she was still seeing him. She said she broke up with him after a couple of months and after she knew that I would stick around. I'll be honest with you, the addict in me said that I could fix her. And it also said that I wanted one more hit. That's always it. One more hit. So we did try. I told her that she needed to end things with End in order for this to work out. Not only that, but that she has to stay sober for me. So I saw her text him and end things. I read the text message and then I saw her block him on her phone and on her Instagram account. I'm not sure why that was supposed to make me feel better. Deep down, I knew it wasn't going to do anything. We talk. And despite everything, I'm still in love with her and eager to pursue our shared dreams of starting a family, getting married, and owning a home together. It's the vision I've worked my butt off for. I'll admit it was a lost cause, but a part of me wanted some security. I wanted this perfect little happy family. I wanted to make my parents proud. I wanted to bring the girl of my dreams home and show them just how much I turned my life around. I was a fool. Kelsey was thrilled that I'd forgiven her and swore she wouldn't hurt me again. Looking back, I can't help but see how naive I was to believe her. As weeks turned into months, I started noticing small, unsettling changes. Kelsey was on her phone more often, always tilting the screen away from me. She'd get mysterious calls and texts late at night and became increasingly secretive about her whereabouts. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. One day, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to dig a little deeper. I knew snooping wasn't the right way to handle things, but the nagging suspicion was eating me alive. I began checking her social media activity more closely, noticing she had unblocked End and a few other guys. I confronted her about it, but she gaslighted me, making me feel like I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe her, so I brushed it off and tried to rebuild the trust. But my gut feeling was relentless. Then one night while Kelsey was in the shower, I checked her phone again. This time I found messages from multiple guys, not just End. They ranged from flirty banter to explicit exchanges. The final straw was a message she sent to End saying she missed their last hookup and couldn't wait for the next one. It hit me like a ton of bricks. She never stopped cheating. Feeling devastated and betrayed, I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my own phone as evidence. I knew that her birthday was coming up. I knew that was my chance to get back at her. For her birthday, I had rented out this hotel room, where she would come back after a night of dancing with her girlfriends. I told her I had some stuff to take care of, but that I'd meet her at the hotel room later. Little did she know, I had been carefully planning a special surprise for her birthday, a surprise that would also serve as my payback. I've been dropping hints to everyone that I had something big planned, leaving heavy clues about a potential engagement proposal. They were all totally buying into it. Her friends were buzzing with excitement, and Kelsey herself seemed to be over the moon. Obviously, some of the girls had spilled the beans, which was fantastic. She would walk into the room thinking this night would mark a new chapter in our relationship. I carefully set the scene at the hotel suite. I made sure everything looked perfect: candles, champagne, romantic decorations, the whole 9 yards. Her friends gathered around, phones out, ready to capture what they believed would be the proposal moment. Kelsey's eyes sparkled with anticipation, her face glowing with excitement. I started by giving a heartfelt speech about our journey together, how much she meant to me, and how I've always envisioned our future. I had to put on the biggest acting performance of my life. Instead of getting down on one knee, I pulled out some papers. Her breath hitched, and there was a collective gasp from the crowd. Kelsey took it and started to read. It was a printout of the messages between her and End, along with screenshots of her conversations with other guys. Her face fell, the room growing silent as the realization of what she was reading hit her. As she was reading the papers, I told her that this is what you've been doing behind my back: cheating, lying, and betraying my trust. I watched her friend's expressions shift from excitement to shock and disgust. I told her that she didn't deserve a proposal and that I was done with her lies and deceit, and everyone should know the truth about her. Kelsey looked at me and lunged like she was about to slap me, but thankfully one of her friends stepped in. She started crying, and I told her I was done, then I walked out. I knew I had to move fast and take the next steps to really get over this toxic relationship. To be honest, I hadn't thought that far ahead at that moment. But the next day, I hit up a buddy of mine who's a real estate agent, and he helped me kick off the process of selling our home. I filled him in on the situation, and he was cool about it, really professional, and got things rolling pretty quickly. While waiting for the house to go on the market, I packed up her stuff. I gave her a call and told her she needed to come get her things. She showed up with one of her friends from the night before, looking totally wrecked and broken. There were no more tears or begging, just this resigned feeling that it was all over. I watched her load her stuff into her car, and when she finished, she handed me the keys to the place we used to share, and I told her it was over for good. I let her know I was selling the place. During this whole thing, Kelsey did ask for a cut of the money from selling the house. She argued that, even with everything that went down, she had put effort into our life together and deserved something for it. I knew she might pull something like this, so I had talked to a lawyer. My lawyer told me that, since her name wasn't on the deed and she hadn't chipped in financially for the mortgage or the down payment, she didn't have any legal right to the money. Still, I wanted to avoid a long fight, so I offered her a little cash as a goodwill gesture, enough to help her move on, but not so much that I felt like I was getting played. Kelsey took the offer, probably realizing she didn't have many options. The real estate agent had set up some showings, and within a few weeks, we got an offer on the house, and I jumped on it right away. I used the money from selling the place to get a new spot for myself, way out of the city where Kelsey was and closer to my family. And now I'm here. I'm seeing a therapist, working on myself. I'm hitting the gym. I'm not quite ready to jump back into dating, and I'll never buy another place with a chick I can't trust or who's broken my trust ever again. I'm trying to heal the old wounds. My family, again, has really been there for me through all of this, and I can't thank them enough. Thanks for letting me ramble on, guys. It's been really good for me to share this, and I genuinely hope it helps anyone going through something similar. For now, I'm planning my next trip to Europe. Maybe that'll heal this old dog. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I found out my wife cheated on me with our neighbor because when she got pregnant, the timing was off and the baby wasn't mine. So I called them out at our baby shower in front of everyone. A 33 male met my wife, 33 female, when we were working in the same office 8 years ago. I was new in town, just moved to a new city for my job, and she was the receptionist at the time. She showed me around the place, and we hit it off. It took a few weeks for me to get the guts to ask her out, but she said yes, and we've been together ever since. We got married a few years later, and everything felt like a dream. We were happy, doing well in our lives, and so in love. Before marriage, we talked about family, and we both wanted kids, but wanted to wait until the time was right. We thought starting a family in our 20s meant giving up our youth, so we made the most of it. We traveled, went skydiving, and enjoyed ourselves without having to worry about anyone else. Over the years during our marriage, I started to feel like I wanted to settle down and start a family. However, it was clear that my wife still wanted to keep up the jet-setting lifestyle we had before. We actually ended up getting into a lot of arguments about how we wanted different things in our lives. In one of those arguments, I told her that if she wasn't going to have kids, I'd have to leave her. I know it was a crappy ultimatum, but I had been very clear that I wanted kids. She told me about some of the fears she had, and how she wanted to be a mom, but she wasn't sure when. I guess that gave me enough hope to stick around. About a year went by, and bringing up the topic was tricky for me, so I tried to avoid it. She was still going out on the weekends with her girlfriends and hitting up bars and clubs while I was home chilling from the work week. I started to notice that she was staying out later and going out more often with her friends. Before, she would go out on Friday and Saturday nights, but she had started going out on weeknights too. When I asked her about it, she told me that she and her friends found a fun happy hour spot and had been going there. One night, I was at home watching a nature documentary while my wife was supposedly at a happy hour with some of her friends. One of those friends happened to be our next-door neighbor who we were pretty close with. She and her husband would invite us over all the time, and we would do the same with them. Someone rang my doorbell, so I got up and answered it. Lo and behold, it was the woman next door that I thought was out with my wife. Apparently, her car wouldn't start, so she needed me to give it a jump since her husband hadn't come home yet. I agreed and grabbed my keys to walk over to her house with her. I asked her why she wasn't at the happy hour with my wife, and she told me that my wife said it was canceled. A lot of red flags were flying for me at that point. Our neighbors were probably some of our closest friends. I didn't understand why my wife would lie to her and tell her the happy hour was canceled. As we were chatting more, she mentioned that she had really been looking forward to it and was upset that it got canceled because her husband had been working late a lot lately. Right away, I got kind of suspicious about that. Maybe it was my own paranoia, or maybe I was connecting some dots that I didn't even know were there, but I was wondering if there might have been something going on between my wife and our neighbor. When she got home, I asked her about it straight up. She told me that I was being crazy for thinking she would cheat on me with our neighbor of all people. Then she explained why she told our neighbor the happy hour was canceled. Apparently, she had rubbed someone in her group of friends the wrong way, and they were uncomfortable with her being there. I believed what she said at the time, but looking back, it didn't make any sense. Our neighbor was the sweetest woman, and I couldn't understand how she would rub someone the wrong way like that. With all our issues, our sex life had pretty much gone out the window. We had a lot of built-up resentment toward each other, and we didn't really talk about it in a healthy way to want to be with each other. One night when I got home from work, my wife was home and super eager to sleep with me. I was surprised, but I didn't think much of it. I was just happy it was happening. About a week later, she was waiting for me when I got home from work in the living room, holding a pregnancy test in her hand. It was positive. At the time, I was completely over the moon. I was finally going to have a kid. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that it wasn't mine. She wasn't going to clubs or happy hours because of the pregnancy, but she was still out quite often. I felt like we should have been together through most of the pregnancy, but it still felt kind of like she was avoiding me. Something that hits me now, but I didn't think much about at the time, is that she never wanted me to go with her to the ultrasound appointments. She would always tell me that they weren't anything important, but I wanted to see the little baby on the monitor. I finally managed to talk her into letting me go to one. While we were there, the doctor showed us our baby on the monitor, and I was so moved I almost cried. Out of curiosity, I asked her if they had an estimated conception date. My wife quickly stepped in and played it off like they would have no way of knowing, but the doctor said that they could give a rough estimate usually within a week of the actual date. She gave me the estimated time range, and later on when I was thinking about it, I realized that it was during the period of time my wife and I hadn't been together in months. She and I had sex together one time, and a week later she told me she was pregnant. I did a little bit of research online to figure out if a week was enough time to get a positive test, and from what I gathered, it was pretty rare. It was rare enough for a woman to even notice she was pregnant a week after conception. Something wasn't adding up, and I needed answers before the baby came. I've never been one to go through my wife's things. That was a boundary neither of us wanted to cross with each other. But in this case, when I thought she was lying to me about being the father of the child I so desperately wanted, I was able to justify doing it. I logged into her laptop while she was out, and I found countless messages through her social media pages between her and our neighbor. All of my suspicions about the two of them had been correct. They had been sleeping together for several months, and it was clear through the messages that the baby was his. He didn't want anything to do with it, and he was worried that it would ruin his life if anything came out about the affair. They both agreed that they would pretend the baby was mine. I honestly can't describe how gut-wrenching it was to find out. Having a kid was my top goal back then. I was over the moon that it was finally happening, and then it was all ripped away from me. No way was I going to let them get away with what they were pulling. Neither of them were going to mess up my life and act like nothing went down. A few weeks went by, and I was starting to distance myself from my wife. I was in the middle of hearing a divorce lawyer and getting the paperwork ready so I could drop it on her. We were hosting a baby shower so folks could bring gifts and celebrate the baby a few months before they arrived. All our friends and family showed up at our place for the party. It was the ideal moment to confront them about the affair. Before the gifts were unwrapped and the cake was sliced, I stood up next to my wife and said I had something to say. Everyone looked at me like they thought I was about to share some touching words about how much I loved my wife and how excited I was to welcome our baby into the world together. Instead, I congratulated her and the real father on their baby. I could tell there was some confusion in the room, so I cleared it up. I let everyone know, including my wife, that I knew the baby wasn't mine. Everyone was shocked and totally grossed out by her. It takes a real piece of work to pretend a baby is someone else's. When I was done, I handed her the divorce papers and told her I was moving out and wanted nothing to do with her or her baby. My neighbor's wife was livid, and she hauled him outside to give him a piece of her mind. Turns out, he was lined up for a big promotion at her dad's company because he was planning to retire. It was a family business, and his father-in-law wanted to keep it in the family, so he was set to take it all over. When they got divorced, that plan fell through. I finally got a divorce from my wife, and I'm way better off without her now. I'm actually seeing someone new who seems to want the same things out of life as I do. We're still pretty early on, so I don't know if it'll last forever, but I've got a good feeling about her. My now ex-wife and our neighbor tried to make things work for the sake of the baby, but I guess they only really clicked when they were sneaking around. Neither of them are dating anyone right now. My ex ended up moving back in with her mom because she couldn't swing the rent in our neighborhood on her own.